All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the September 5th, 2023, huh? Sounds like Tweety Bird. The 2023 Rutherford County, Tennessee Public Works and Planning Committee. I believe I'm going to call on Vice Chair Steve Piercy for review of the minutes.
Chairman Cush, I have reviewed the minutes and find them in order and will move for their approval.
All right, we have a motion. I need a second. Thank you, Joshua. All those in favor, please say aye. Thank you. That motion does carry. Those minutes will go into the archives. At this time, I'm going to open the floor to public comments. If anybody has public comments that have signed up. Nobody has signed up. Yeah, you just keep your seat. All right, we will move right on along to Public Building Codes report. Ms. Tanya Bell. Okay, thank you.
Good evening. How are we all doing? All right, I am going to start with the permit summary report. And for the month of August, we issued a total of 294 permits. 64 of those were single-family dwellings, which was down a little bit from last month, but up a whole lot from same month last year. We had this time, last month we had 76 single-family dwellings. This month last year we had 40. For a total revenue of $221,011.30 for building permits.
All right, very good.
Okay, and if nobody has any questions, I'll move on to our SFT and development tax report. In the month of August, we collected $671,200 in school facilities tax for a total accumulation of $1,231,773 for July and August, which Michael just informed me, I think he's gone, just informed me was up 119% from this time last year for the same 2 months. Sorry?
I'm sorry. Fantastic.
Development tax was $15,750.
And, okay, yeah. Gotcha.
And the majority of the school facilities tax was with single-family dwellings. There was no apartment complexes, no major projects or anything. It was single-family dwellings, townhomes was the majority purpose for the increase. They're just up that much over last year in all 4 jurisdictions, not just Rutherford County.
All right.
All right.
Any questions for Bill?
Nope. All right, then zoning enforcement. We had a total of 281 inspections the month of August.
And those were mostly what, Tanya?
The majority of our inspections every month are re-inspections. They're typically cases that we've already got established and we're trying to close them out. So I just looked and we have so far this year, this calendar year, we have about 400 new cases. So our 281 and 195 is not new cases every month. Those are new cases plus re-inspections. So the majority of those were, 106 of those were re-inspections.
Okay, very good. Joshua?
I want to thank you for your timely response and those emails back and forth with me on that one issue I called you about, I guess, last week. But with no other questions, I'll move to approve.
All right. We have a motion to approve her reports, and we have a second. All those in favor? Thank you. Tanya, is there anything we can help you with, this committee can help you with?
Not this month.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you,
All right, thanks. All right, we do not have a report from the Highway Department, so we will move right to solid waste reports. Mr. Bishop Wagner.
Good evening, Chairman,
Good evening.
Commissioners. I'm Bishop Wagner. I'm your Rutherford County Solid Waste Director. The report is as follows. Month of August, Rutherford County Landfill accepted 336.35 tons of brush for a revenue of $9,759. We also managed 2,052 tires for a revenue of $2,516. The total combined revenue for the month of August is $12,275. Rutherford County Solid Waste disposed of 2,954.25 tons of waste from all sources in the month of August. 2,337.64 tons were from our convenience centers, and 616.61 were from our schools. We recycled 386.94 tons from all sources, and that's a diversion rate of 13.10 for August. So we're, in comparison to our last report, for the last 3 months, we've been around that 13% diversion rate, which is considerably better than we have. The costs associated with landfill activities this month include $11,200 for manpower and equipment to manage the brush pile, $3,520 for scale house administrative staff, and $22,309 for Liberty Tires for their management and recycling. The total cost of $37,029 and a revenue of $12,275 for a net negative $24,754.
Bishop, does that net negative?
Yes, net negative.
Does
yes.
that align with your budget, or is that a dangerous number for you?
No, it's actually, this number for this month is actually pretty good for Liberty on the cost, but I discussed, I think in a meeting previously, we receive revenues back from the Department of Revenue based on new tires that are sold, and that money goes back into the 116 fund quarterly, and as that money goes in, it offsets the cost that we're absorbing from Liberty Tire.
I got a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
That
Chairman.
$11,200 for manpower and equipment, who's that paid out to? Is that to our employees or subcontractor?
It is presently being paid out to Milton under month to month. We're in the process of getting our own equipment still, and until we do that, we're kind of in that.
Well, that's
transition.
what I understood, that we hadn't renewed. When does that contract end?
The contract is ended officially, and we're they've agreed to help us out month to month until we can get procure the equipment that we need. I have one more other item, but it's not a report, so.
All right. Any more questions on the report? If not, I would need a motion to approve. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? All right. Thank you, Bishop. Continue on.
So, Commissioner Piercy, couple months ago, had asked that I bring before you the results of our single stream test since we went to all of our convenience centers. So I've got some numbers together, and I apologize that there were the data that I had on your iPads was, it stopped in August 23. I got the rest of that data in today, so there's a little bit of difference in the fact sheet, but I'll explain those differences as I go through with the math. So the distance from the average distance from our convenience centers to Waste Management River Hills facility is 36 miles. The late August fuel prices were at $3.90 a gallon. At average of 5 miles per gallon is the fuel mileage that the trucks get. That's 14.4 gallons round trip for a cost of 56.16 fuel for round trip on a truck. The average man hours per trip are 2. An hour down there, an hour back. The average driver pay is around $22 an hour, and so the average driver pay per trip is $44 per trip. Single-stream recycling has repurposed about 2,016 man-hours used in Rutherford County rather than driving to Nashville. So that's by putting these materials in one container instead of the multiple containers that we've been using. We've saved 2,016 trips since in the last 3 months. Fuel costs rose in the month of August, which is reflected in this estimate. In July, we paid $2.95 to $3.45 per gallon, and in July, we spent roughly $18,000 for fuel. That is historically low. I think it was an anomaly. Last year, the fuel cost was between $24,000 and $28,000 a month at the same period of time. So we used it based on the most recent number, which puts us in that $25,000 to $26,000 per month cost. Okay, this estimate does not include the cost of the truck, maintenance and repairs, tires, traffic delays, driver benefits, administrative support that's required for this, or anything of that nature. So our tipping fees in our old system would be similar to what is outlined here, because we were effectively paying the same price per ton as we were taking the material. And let's keep in mind, all of this material was going to the same location for the majority of the time, and has been all year anyway, to the River Hills facility. So there's a benefit in compacting this material. It's a 1-to-7 compaction ratio, so for every one container that I'm taking up there, I'm saving 7 trips. So now, where we now carry 168 loads, the old system would have required 1,008 additional recycling trips. So that's a lot of time our trucks aren't on the road. This represents 72,576 miles and 2,016 engine hours that are saved in maintenance and wear on our county trucks. The estimated cost of each county truck is between $240,000 for our roll-off trucks and $360,000 for our front-load trucks. And we have a front-load truck that collects recycling that goes up there and recycles as well. So in 1,009 trips saved, about $101,061.44 on fuel and driver pay from June 1st to August 31st. So let's take that number and do a little averaging. That puts an average of $12,081.67 of cost per month in our tipping fees. That times 12 is $144,980 on an average cost per year. The savings projected from the fuel savings cost, the loads that we're saving, and all of the data that I mentioned above, is a projected $404,245.76. So that's a 64.14% cost savings per year.
That's a per year savings.
Yes, sir.
Pretty remarkable.
It is important to note that any agreement that we would go on to firm up this with the River Hills facility, that $144,980 average per year would be expected to go down because we'd be working on what effectively would be a unit price or an audit price. So as commodities sell that are within our pile, currently we're not receiving anything back as a bonus for this. We're just paying the flat fee, and we've been saving the money on our logistics from that end. That will drive that number down as well.
When do you feel comfortable in moving forward with that?
I'm ready to do it today.
Have they brought you a contract or anything?
No, sir, we haven't gotten that far. I wanted to get y'all's approval before we went forward with something like that.
So that's the next step?
That would be the next step, to get some stuff on paper to try to get the county a better deal.
All right. Well, do you have that by the next meeting, you think?
He
I believe I can-
probably needs our permission to do so, wouldn't you think?
I would think so. But that is your desire, Bishop. You're asking us for a motion to go ahead and enter into or review a contract?
Yes, please.
After listening to what he has told us and the savings it's accumulating, I see no reason not to let him go forward in pursuing a contract with them and bringing it back in here and looking at the numbers, the basic numbers on that, and then trying to get that voted through. Oh, yeah.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? Let's take a vote on that. Or do we need to be on the board for that? Rachel? Okay, wouldn't hurt. I'm assuming that would need to go, would have eyes on by Nick Christensen for, just for legalese, and would that need to go through budget for review, or no, do you think? Budget would have to? Okay.
Commissioner Anthony Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner James,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips, Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Chairman Cush.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bishop. Anything else? Introduce that, go ahead.
Thank you all very much. Oh, would you like me to invite?
Yeah, go ahead.
If I could invite Mayor Carr to come up, we had some news this week from our recent RFP he'd like to share with you.
Mr. Chairman, as the committee probably is aware, we opened up the RFP for disposal and transportation for Rutherford County waste in advance of the funding and construction of the transfer station. In the RFP, we outlined the requirements for respondents at 100 to 150,000 tons per year, and the quote or the responses were to be both transportation and disposal. And so we received two bids, one of which, or two responses, one of which declined to bid, and the second was a response from Waste Management Company. And they have two facilities that, end-of-life facilities that would be of interest to Rutherford County. The first would be Cedar Ridge in Marshall County. The second would be in Camden, which is west of here on the Tennessee River. They responded to the RFP with a sale price or price for 2025, not 2024, but 2025. And the per ton price was $40 a ton for disposal only. Then they offered a third option, which is disposal and transportation at $62 a ton, which is $8 under the pro forma that we initially passed out to everybody. $62 a ton, which is $8 less than the pro forma that we passed out to the committee, well, I don't know, maybe a couple months ago. And I'll be glad to take questions, Mr. Chairman, if you like.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
you said the third option was total the 62. I missed an option.
Well, there was a first option that they did not respond to, which I didn't.
Oh, gotcha.
They have three options that they, when responding to an RFP like this, they did not exercise option one. They exercised options 2 and 3. Option 2 was $40 a ton, which was disposal only. And option 2 was $62 a ton, which is disposal and transportation.
62 is to transport it and tip it.
Transport and disposal, yes, sir. Tip and disposal would be one and the same.
And does that $62 apply to either, I guess not that we would care, but does that apply to both Cedar Ridge and Camden?
Yes, but they outline in their proposal their intent to take it to Cedar Ridge, which is in Marshall County. But once the material leaves Rutherford County or leaves our transfer station, they can take it wherever they deem best fit for themselves. So you're right, it doesn't make a lot of difference to us, but they've said that they're going to identify Cedar Ridge and Marshall County as the destination point.
Vice Chair Pearson.
Is there any way we can put a number to what it will cost us per ton to get it to that point, like the operations of the facility? Because there'll have to be something there.
I'm not sure. I don't understand your question, Commissioner.
Well, we're going to charge a tipping fee to bring it in the gate.
Yes, sir.
Somebody's got to handle it while it's on our property and goes back on these trucks.
Correct.
That's not included in your $62.
No, sir. Those are operational
Is
costs.
there any way to get a number on that's going to be added to the $62?
Yes, there's a good number we have available in that regard, and it's anywhere, it's at a certain point, the operational costs are firm, but once you start transferring more MSW, your costs are going to go up past a particular point because you're going to have to bring more manpower and equipment online. But for the 100 and 150,000 tons, our operational costs are about $750,000 a year. So you can, at that point, we can do the math on what the price per ton to operate the facility would be.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Chairman, what I'm going to request, just like with River City, we will enter into contract negotiations with Nick and bring that back to Public Works. We will also begin similar conversations with Waste Management and bring Nick Christensen in on those because obviously just because we have a proposal doesn't mean we have an agreement. So we'll begin that process as well, and we'll keep Public Works updated.
Okay. Thank you.
One more question. Did they put a time limit on their RFP price?
No, sir. They said, well, yes, sir, they did. They responded to the RFP saying it was for 2025. So what we need to have a discussion is what happens if the transfer station comes online, let's say the third or fourth quarter of 2024. To what extent does that affect the price? Their price was for 100 to 150,000 tons. What happens if we go to 200,000 or 250,000 tons? Those kinds of things are the kind of things that we need to have a conversation about, and that would probably need to be included in the contract. The other thing I failed to admit is the agreement would be for 5 years with 3 5-year options for renewal for a period of 20 years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Oh, sure.
And that was my question, how long that would last. And you're saying for $62 a ton, that it extend that 5 years?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Help me with my math. I did $750,000, which is the operational cost, divided by 150,000 tons, which is the low end, and got approximately $4.30 a ton. Does that sound right? Okay, so yeah, pretty cheap operation. Okay, all right. Thank you, Bishop. We did approve his report, so he is done. Planning and Engineering, Mr. Doug DeMossi. And I see you have your running buddy, Mr. Hughes, if needed, for backup.
My bodyguard, yes, sir. Thank you, Doug DeMossi, Planning Director. Good evening, Commission and guests. Hope everyone's doing well tonight. First thing on our report for tonight is the available lot inventory. Again, this is just the unincorporated area. As of the end of August, we have 878 available lots. Again, those are lots that are ready for building permits as we speak right now. The last few months, since about May, that number's fluctuated in the 850 to 900 range. We haven't seen just a whole lot of new plats and plans come in, the larger subdivisions, although we have seen over the last few months a couple of larger subdivision sections being recorded, which is kind of what's causing the fluctuation. Building permit activity has remained pretty steady, but this is down about 20 lots from last month or so, but it's, like I said, it's been in that 850 to 900 range for the last several months. So if there's no questions on that, I will go into our rezoning report. We do have 3 requests coming before you at next week's meeting. First is for property located along Shelbyville Pike. They are looking for a commercial general zoning, rezoning from commercial services for about 8 acres of property. This application actually was deferred from the July 10th Planning Commission meeting due to the applicant not being present, and there were some questions about how much of the property they wanted to rezone. After deferral, I had some discussions with the applicant and also the owner of the property, and the decision was they wanted to rezone the whole thing, which made more sense anyway. They want to use a portion of the property to open an auto sales dealership. Those are only allowed in commercial general and higher. They're not allowed in the commercial services zone, therefore the need for the rezoning. Most of the discussion we had on this, there wasn't that much, but what discussion there was, the commission did ask the applicant, there's an existing Dutch barn business on the property. They were asking if that was going to remain, which the applicant said that it was. Following that, in the public hearing, which no one spoke at, the Planning Commission did recommend approval of that request by a unanimous vote. Our second request, and this request is a little unusual, this is for property located along Couchville Pike, 9164. This is actually a downzoning. They're looking to zone the property from office professional down to residential medium density. The property was zoned office professional back in 2016 for a counseling center. They actually operate a center nearby on adjacent property on Corinth Road, and they felt that this was going to be an extension of that. However, as time has gone on, they've expanded in other communities, other areas, and it turns out that this property wasn't as necessary as they thought it was. So they have someone that's looking to buy the property. There's an existing house on it, and they just want to use it for residential purposes. However, office professional does not allow single-family residential use, so they were having some issues obtaining the financing they need. So the owners of the property just asked if they could rezone this back to residential medium density. As expected, there wasn't much discussion on this item at the Planning Commission's meeting. There was some questions about the zoning boundaries and the property lines not being consistent. I explained that when this property was rezoned back in 2016, the property lines were a little different. They've shifted over time, but that doesn't change the zoning lines. So they were just asking for the portion of office professional that was actually on their property. So if this is approved, their entire property will be zoned RM, residential medium density. Again, this did pass as well by a unanimous vote. The final application for your consideration is for property located along Ocala Road. Ocala Road is located off of Almaville Road, right to the north of the I-840 Almaville Road intersection. The applicant is proposing to zone this property to commercial general. He'd like to operate a self-storage facility for boats, campers, and RVs. The reason they're asking for the commercial general zoning is that the storage of the boats and RVs falls under more of what we call automotive parking, which is not allowed in commercial services, which is a little less intense than the commercial general zone, but still does require a special exception from the Board of Zoning Appeals. So even if the zoning is approved, this still has another step that it would have to go through, plus site plan and all that. There was quite a bit of discussion on this particular item. Of the 3 public hearings, this is the one that had the most discussion. The Planning Commission, there were several questions there. They asked what would happen if the zoning application were approved, but the special exception for mini warehouses and or boat RV storage was denied. We responded that the uses allowed in the zoning ordinance would dictate what could happen on the property. There were some other questions about development just in the Ocala Road area as well. There were several neighbors in the area who spoke. Concerns that were brought up included the condition of Ocala Road, traffic issues, property values, safety issues and crime, lack of full-time firefighters in the area, intrusion of a commercial use into residential community, and follow-through with the developer. There were additional comments made by the commission after the public hearing about the future land use plan for both Rutherford County and the town of Smyrna. One commissioner also asked that the applicant hold a neighborhood meeting, which is not required for this kind of zoning. Following that discussion, the Planning Commission did recommend approval by a vote of 8-4 and 1 against. So that's just a quick overview of the three that will be coming before you next week, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Yes. Chairman.
Mr. DeMasi, the town of Smyrna's land use plan, we've talked to them, and they're on board.
Well, they did say that this would fit within their plans for the area if they ever were to get that far and annex it. Now, obviously, we don't base our decisions on what someone else's land use plan says, but that's for informational purposes, yeah.
Yes, Joshua.
To make a note on the one on Collar Road, before your planning meeting, I had met with the neighborhood out there and had a long discussion, tried to fill them in, get their feel. And then I believe this weekend, because after the planning meeting, I had asked the developer if he would meet with them, and I believe they've set up a meeting with him as well.
Oh, okay.
So he'll be doing what Ms. P was asked for.
Okay, very good.
So we should have more results from that this weekend.
Excellent, thank you.
Anything else for Doug? Seeing none, need a motion for approval of his reports. And we have a second. All those in favor? Any opposed? Doug, you got anything else?
Just a couple of updates. On Plan Rutherford, we're in the process of setting up our next steering committee meeting for Plan Rutherford, probably in the next couple of weeks, as well as setting up some community meetings, hopefully the last week of September, first week of October. So I'll get you the dates and everything when we get that settled, but I just wanted to let you know things were moving along.
Thank you.
Just one follow-up on that, Doug. We're in phase 2.
Correct.
Phase 2, and we hope to be through phase 2 by the end of the year.
I believe that's right. Yeah, I don't have the schedule right in front of me, but
So the steering committee will really start conducting their business sometime December, January, something.
right. I mean, they've met a couple times already. This would be meeting 3. So, but yes, I mean, I think their work really begins in earnest at this point.
So their work, the steering committee's work really begins in phase 3.
I'd say it starts. It's been going, but I think the real, trying to figure out starts now, I would say.
I had two questions for you. Just wanted to inquire on. On Plan Rutherford, is that one thing you're going to bring up about the changing what type of zoning needs for what am I trying to get at? The boat, the RV, so that's not considered just plain automotive storage? Or is that something that's going to be?
That's probably something more, we could look at that outside of the comp plan. Now, the comprehensive plan or Plan Rutherford, the update, that's probably what that's going to do is identify areas where you want to see certain types of development, be it residential density, it could be commercial/industrial type development. After those are identified, it may not go as deep dive as what you were saying as far as actual regulations for specific types of land uses. That's really more a function of zoning, but that's something we could do outside of even the update to the plan if there was some concerns that you wanted to bring forward to us.
Okay, I just wanted to see if it's something we're going to be working on in the process of this or not, or so it's something to bring up separate. The other question I wanted to ask was what I asked last month about before developments are approved, looking for number of seats available for the schools to go in. Mm-hmm. Where are we with that, and what can we do to create
we've
that?
Actually reached out with our school system. We're trying to set up a meeting early next week to discuss a couple concepts that we've been looking at for potential development. Nothing that's been submitted to our office, but it's something that those reports that I give you on the lot inventory, those are also sent to the school central office, so they have that. But whenever we see larger developments or anything like that coming in, we always get their input into the process about how things, what impact that's going to have on them and things moving forward. So, but those discussions are starting, I guess.
I'd like to kind of be more in the loop on knowing kind of as that's progressing forward, because that feels like that's going to be a very big need with as many schools that we're going to have to get online.
Yes.
With everything that's coming.
Yeah, agreed.
Thank you, Joshua. Anything else for Doug? Doug, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. All right, next on the agenda is the City of Murfreesboro Qualified Biogas Project, and I would like to bring up to the podium Mr. Tidwell from the City of Murfreesboro. And if you guys will look in your folder on your iPad, you will get, I think there's 4 docs in there in that folder. Just to give you a little brief update on why the city is here looking for our request and approval. As you know, a solid waste processing facility is being proposed by the city, which is part of the waste handling, and in turn, part of the building is the waste away facility, which then will also then take that into a renewable natural gas byproduct, which they can sell in the open market. TDEC has to approve this facility, and TDEC will not evaluate that request until the City of Murfreesboro and Rutherford County has had a chance to look at it and approve the construction of the facility. So this is part of that Jackson Law thing that if you held a gun to my head, I really couldn't clearly explain it to you, but this is part of that law that was done, what, 20-some years ago? Yeah. And anyway, so this is one of those little clauses in the Jackson Law that says, hey, if you're gonna build a waste management facility, you have to get approval from all parties. And so this is the city's gonna has a resolution before us. They have to do the same thing before their city council to get approval before they continue on for TDEC to get the global approval to look at it. So I give the floor to Mr. Tidwell. Why don't you, for the record, why don't you introduce yourself and your
Craig Tyndall, I'm the city manager in the city of Glendale. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You pretty much summed it up excellently, so I'm happy to answer any questions. And I thank the committee for the time here. This is really the preliminary process to get the application started. And so if we're going to keep to our timeline, which this committee I know has worked very hard in the context of Middle Point landfill closing at some point in time, and we are part of the planning process that the city's undergoing is to have a transfer station, which has been planned for a long period of time on the south side of the city of Murfreesboro, and we've been talking with Waste Away, and we still have some discussions with that facility or that company to put a facility out there to create biogas for renewable natural gas, and to be able to sell that out into the marketplace and help pay for the processing of waste management. It'll allow for 90% of the municipal waste that goes into that plant to be recycled with some additional recycling that comes out of that 10%. Some of it's just water that'll be evaporated off, and some small portion of that will be landfilled as well. So, but the plant at its capacity will process 140 tons of municipal solid waste, and like I said, produce natural gas from that, and then the byproduct is still a fuel that could be used as well. This will allow the city to submit its application to TDEC to get a permit as we continue through the process. We haven't gotten to the process of agreements yet, but to keep with the timeline and TDEC's processing timeline that it has, we'd like to get the county to pass this resolution, which is required, as the chairman mentioned, by the Jackson Law. The city passed, I think it was last Thursday or the Thursday before that, a resolution in support of it as well. So the city's done its process. So this is for the county now to agree for that application to start its permitting process. Happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sure.
You mentioned timeline a couple of times, Mr. Tidwell. Could you kind of go over that with the transfer station and also the waste processing plant?
Right. The transfer station is right now under development. If we get too technical, I'll ask Ryan Maloney, who's the engineer on the project, to give a little more detail on the timeline. But it more than likely will be 18 months, a couple of years in order to get the the facilities put together. The timeline for the plant itself, we'll leave that to Waste Away. The city will build a transfer station. We were always planning to build a transfer station, so we'll put a transfer station there. And then the municipal waste that's at that transfer station will either be put through the processing plant or be transferred, just like the Northside transfer station would be, to another landfill. And then we'll build a building that will house the processing facility. So all of those, I think, about 24 months. Yeah, about 2 years, 24 months. Yeah.
Is that 2 years for the transfer station, and then the processing plant would be close behind?
Right close behind, yeah.
That processing plant, who regulates that? Is it a state, federal inspected process?
Processing plant, now we're getting a little bit technical. Ryan, I'll ask Ryan to join me. He's, like I said, the project engineer on this, and he has a lot more information on the technical aspects.
Ryan, would you introduce yourself for the record?
Good morning, or good evening, Commissioners. Ryan Maloney, Griggs Maloney. TDEC is the regulatory authority for transfer stations, solid waste processing facilities, landfills.
Since TDEC is, that's the reason they're here.
Correct.
Don't go anywhere, Ryan, in case there's other questions. All right. Yes, Chairman P.
Greg, you said this has already been approved by Murfreesboro City Council. What was the vote on that?
The resolution allowing us to move forward under the Johnson law has been approved. We don't have agreements that have been approved or anything along those lines. There's a unanimous vote for the processing, unanimous vote for the resolution to allow us to start the application.
Joshua?
I see next to it, there's a large neighborhood. Have y'all done any, public notice or gotten any feedback from the community out there about wanting it in their backyard, so to speak?
Yeah, there's been feedback from that. As I said before, there was always planned to be here a transfer station, so that's always been there. It's an industrial section of the city. The neighborhoods lie actually on the other side of the Middle Fork of the Stones River. So there's quite a boundary there, and then the nearest house is about a mile or half a mile away. So right now there's no anticipation, and it's being designed so that there won't be any impact on the neighborhood. Roadways where it's going to be located on Butler Drive will be realigned so that the processing plant will it'll come off Butler onto a dead-end road that will go right into the processing plant, which will address traffic concerns. So the biogas facility itself, the anaerobic digester, General Mills has one, one-third the distance away right now that's been operating for years without any kind of issues.
Thank you, Chairman. And this approval of this resolution is not an approval of the project.
Right.
It's Joshua, just to be clear, we're not saying, hey, let's do this, or approving the city to do a site or any other zoning or it's just an application to TDEC
Right.
to operate. And if TDEC fails it because they don't meet the regulations or Ryan's design's incorrect or whatever, it won't work.
Right. Exactly.
I just want to make that clear to this board. We're not approving a transfer station. We're not approving a biodigester.
Yeah.
We're approving an application for a municipal solid waste item.
Really a preliminary step in this process, and to keep us in the timeline. That's the important part.
I can see that, but I'm also looking at it as even an approval of this would be, as passive as it is, a nod from us towards that direction. And one thing I just look at, and I'm sure you've looked for better spots and everything, I just find it interesting that this county always wants to put their trash next to a water source along the river or landfill up at the other end. So I'm just little observations that I'm trying to put together in my own mind to see. I don't like giving a nod in one direction when I'm not comfortable in that direction myself, regardless, even if it is just a procedural moment.
Yeah. You want to address the
Just another note to add, it is near the Middle Fork of the Stones River, but the property does not abut it. The new Butler Drive alignment would be a barrier between the river and our facility. We're also nestled, like Craig mentioned, in between several industrially zoned parcels and Joby Jackson and the I-24 interchange. Predominant wind direction is moving away from the heaviest parts of residential, so it's blowing towards the interstate. So noise and odors, less of a concern in that scenario. In addition, all the operations are enclosed within the structure that's proposed.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Dodd and myself are both Murfreesboro representatives on the county commission. I've been asking myself, why in the world would we even oppose anything like this? I'm glad you answered the questions. I'll make a motion to approve, not to cut off discussion, but make a motion to approve the request.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve.
And my quick second is because in my profession and understand the application process, understand TDEC's requirements, and I have a great comfort level that the city will do their due diligence and will do their open forum public meetings to accommodate the citizens and have the answers of there's more barriers and so forth. So I'm very comfortable with their professional processes, and I do know that this application process just has to go forward for them to even be able to consider a final product. So I'm in support.
Chairman P.
Well, first of all, I want to point out I'm also a Murfreesboro City County representative on the commission, as several more of us are, but also I've got a large rural area. But my question, Greg, you mentioned biogases. What specific gases are we talking about? Methane?
It's, well, I'm not going to do chemistry. I'll let.
Right. It's an anaerobic digester, so it would be methane gas collected in a sealed vessel.
It's not released to the atmosphere. It's piped.
Similar to what we saw in California. I know they had a anaerobic digester out there. Greg, you were on that trip, so.
Very important we capture all the gas. That's where the payback and the revenues are.
Yeah. As I said earlier, Commissioner, the same process is used by General Mills, just to the north, and in processing their waste out of their plants. It's a anaerobic digesting has been around for years in rural areas. And
yeah, don't misunderstand me at all. I'm all in favor of y'all looking for alternatives to taking care of our municipal waste other than sticking it in a hole in the ground. And, you know, I applaud you for that. I just want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence by finding out everything we can about this process.
All right, any last questions?
One.
All right, where are we? Oh, Steve, okay.
Under the Jackson law, it doesn't matter whether it's the city or whoever, they would still have to come in here and make the same request for us to approve the resolution, whether it was the city's operation or somebody else in a wanting to put in a trash business or whatever. Is that not right?
Steve, I don't know if I have the qualifications to answer that question.
yeah, the Jackson law would require any type of processing facility. It says landfill. It's been interpreted as processing facility that's in the county, in the city, or within a mile of those jurisdictions to get a resolution. And that would include whether we were just doing a transfer station alone or the
It's for protection for both city and county.
So if Bubba came to us with a landfill, I mean, not a landfill, but a transfer station, he'd have to go through the same process, right?
Just like to point out one more thing. What a great idea to process waste without putting it in the ground. So the idea and the concept is admirable, and ended for that vision. I hope that vision works.
Right. We all do. All right. Are you ready to vote? Can we go on the board for this? Do you mind? All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner James?
No.
Commissioner Anthony Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner Robert P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips? Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Chairman Kush?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, that motion carries. Thank you, everybody. I have other business as the last item of today. Does anybody have anything to announce? Seeing none, this meeting has concluded.